Hey, hello to all lovers of the world of Blenderizm and those who drink coffee in the morning. If you love coffee as much as I do, then write about it in the comments. In general, as you already understood, in this episode we will create an image with a coffee package. For reference, I chose this image for myself. I liked the style in which it was executed. And I want to create something similar and show you how it is done in two programs, Blender 4.2 and Photoshop 2023 year. Technically, to be more precise, I use 4 programs. I also edit in CapCut and record video in OBS. Well, as usual, the creation of most models begins with blocking. A fundamental aspect of 3D modeling is the blocking phase, which involves creating simple shapes to form the basis of the model. Blender makes blocking easy by using primitive shapes, reference images, and scale figures. Start by creating basic shapes that match your model. And so you can see that I started with creating the general shapes of the packaging and a place for the 2 stripes to close the packaging. Using the combination Ctrl R, I add a loop cut, and with the mouse wheel I adjust the number I need. Now I select the faces on which these stripes will be located. And apply the insert tools to them, the hotkey I on the keyboard, but first do not forget to apply scale so that everything works correctly, and now we can extrude the faces along the y-axis. We repeat the same procedure on the other side of the packaging. Now let's work a little on the sides of the package. In edit mode, select the upper triangular and lower rectangular faces. And again we will use the insert tool, press the I button the first time to set the thickness of the package and the second time to create faces that need to be pulled inside the package, using the S/X buttons. Now I want to make these sides a little convex. To do this, we need to add several edge loops, vertical and horizontal. Then we have the opportunity to select the vertices inside and stretch them along the X-axis a little. I also want to make the package convex along the y-axis, but very slightly. To do this, repeat the same procedure, stretch the vertices along the y-axis. Okay, now press Ctrl 3 to quickly add a subdivision surface. So now I want to start creating a UV map. And the first step in this matter is we need to mark the seams along which the UV map will be created. And so in edit mode with the Alt-Shift buttons held down, we select the edges that will be our seams. Well, when all the edges we need are selected, press the right mouse button and select Mark Seam. Next, for more visual and convenient work, I suggest going to the UV Editing tab. So if we press the A button and select all the faces, then press the U button and select Unwrap, then on the left side of the screen we can see what our UV map looks like. And we need to finalize it. Our task is to arrange the elements of the UV map in such a way as to maximize their size and fill the square. This is necessary for future ease of work in Photoshop. If you played Tetris or collected puzzles as a child, then I think this will not be difficult for you. Using the L button on the keyboard, we can quickly select whole objects. Also, using the R button, we can rotate the objects. When we have completed this step, we go to the UV tab and at the very bottom we find Export UV Layout. Here we specify the path where to save the image of our UV map. And also, in order to achieve better texture quality, I suggest increasing the number of pixels by 2 times 2048 by 2048. Okay, fine, we've done the important part. Now I want to apply a slight waviness effect to the faces. Since the packaging is usually vacuum and it takes the shape of the coffee beans that are inside. Therefore, in edit mode, select the side faces, go to the vertex group tab, create a new group and assign the faces we just selected. We need to do the same with the front and back faces. In edit mode, select them, create another group and assign them. We need to add a displace modifier. Inside it, create a new texture, go to the texture settings and select cloud. At first glance, the result is stunning in quotation marks. But this is easy to fix, we just need to select vertex group on which the modifier should act and reduce the force of the effect. What seems to me is that it is necessary to increase the scale of the texture. Add a shade smooth and duplicate the displace modifier. Only now we need to select the vertex group that is assigned to the side faces. And now if you look closely we have a small problem together where the strips for closing and opening are located. This is easy to fix, just do not assign those faces on which the opening and closing strip. I decided to show you this moment, since we are learning and I wanted to show you how I need to do it. Select the necessary faces, assigned in the vertex group and specify it in the modifier. Well, that's it, everything is fine with us. We can continue boldly. Next, I want to slightly refine the lower part of the package, to give it a more realistic look. In edit mode, select the faces that are at the bottom and squeeze them down along the Z-axis. Now press Ctrl R and add one vertical edge loop. We need it to make a fake joint at the bottom of the package. To do this, hold down the Alt and Shift buttons and select the edges at the very bottom of the package and press Ctrl B to split them into two. And now you can press the ES combination to push these faces inward. You just need to correct this effect a little, you need to cancel the selection on the vertical faces and slightly raise the horizontal ones along the Z-axis. And magically move to Photoshop. Open the UV map image. Now, using layers, one by one, step by step, we will add elements over the faces. First, I take the killer coffee logo. I expand it and reduce it to the desired size using the Ctrl-T combination. It is advisable to do everything as accurately as possible at once, so that there is less work in the future. As you can see, I already have layers of coffee beans on a transparent background. And I also have to expand it, reduce it and place it in the right place. When the coffee beans are in place, we can swap the layers so that the logo is on top. Next, we need to add a green flame. You could find some image on the internet, but Photoshop has a really cool function for creating fire. To do this, select the pen tool and create a contour that will be the basis of our fire, but do not forget to create a new layer for this. Next, go to Filters, Render and click Fire. In this window, select the color of the flame and make the settings we need. In this case, I rotate the flame by 90 degrees, adjust the length of the flame and the distance between, and we can click OK. The outline can now be deleted. Now add a color adjustment layer and choose black, since I want the base of the package to be black. Now you can hide it for a while and move on to the faces that belong to the side. Using the direct lasso tool, select the faces that are responsible for the side of the package. Create a new layer and I want to color it with a gradient from dark green to light green. Therefore, we need to select gradient and switch it to the mode of working from one color to another. Let's place it horizontally and set the colors we need, after which we just need to use the slider to achieve the final result. Now we make sure that we did everything correctly, turn on the black layer and proceed to add the inscription to the side. I did not find a suitable logo, so I decided to just write the word coffee in a cool font from scary movies. It is called DK Face Your Fears. At this point, our UV map is ready. And we can export it in JPG format. Whoosh, and we're back in Blender. Go to Shader, add new material, point to Principal BSDF and press Ctrl T. This way we quickly add texture, image coordinates, and mapping. You must have Wrangle Add-on enabled. Find our UV map on disk. Switch to material mode and we can find that the word coffee is written only on one side. This is easy to fix. Switch to UV map mode. And now we need to select the faces that belong to the second side and place them on top of the first side. And that's it, our inscription is on both sides. We can also notice that the image on the front side is not quite even. This is also easy to fix. Press Ctrl R to add additional edge loop and drag it to the edge of the package, until the image stretches. We can also notice that the fire does not start from the very bottom of the package. In this case it is necessary to select all the front faces and pull them to the right a little along the x-axis. And so, now, I want to slightly adjust the material from which the packaging is made. Usually it is slightly similar to oilcloth. Therefore it should glare. To create this effect I lower the roughness slightly, and also increase the weight of coat to approximately 0.25. Next, I want to paint the stripes that close the packaging in a light green color. Therefore, in the editing mode, I select the front faces and then press the combination Ctrl+. After which you can add another material and paint it light green. As you can see, the coffee beans don't reach the very top. This is also easy to fix. Add another edge loop and pull it up. So now we can move on to the stage of creating a mini studio for rendering. This is what my workspace looks like. I put the reference image in front of me so that I could navigate. At the top left I have a small window in which the rendering mode and the camera view are turned on. That is, I constantly see the result of my adjustments. You can also see how many different lighting devices I have installed to illuminate the scene. If I'm not mistaken, there are 9 of them. The thing is that each of these devices has its own task. Let's figure it out one by one and everything will become clear. I suggest starting with the light panel. That's what I call them. In fact, this is a plane to which I assigned a material with circular gradient settings in the center. And it shines from black to green. If you turn on the material mode, you can notice that this panel is invisible to the camera. These settings are enabled in the Object Settings tab. See? I unchecked the boxes next to Camera and Glossy. And also in the Shading tab there is an option to configure light linking. And I made it so that this light panel shines only on the floor. But for this you need to place the floor in a separate collection and specify it in the list. And you should to turn on emission in material on pretty high level. This light area is also set up in a similar way. It shines only on the side of the package and does not hit anything else. The next light area is set up in such a way that it shines only on the floor in front of the package, and this is the light area. You can notice that it is not directed at the package. But it also plays an important role. It creates a glare on the top of the package. Now we can move on to this light area and you can notice that its power is set to 200W. This is because I have the world lighting turned off and it acts as the main illuminator. But it only shines on our package with Killer Coffe. Since the other devices are already enough to illuminate the scene. Now we can move on to this large light area. It also has its own purpose. It shines on the coffee beans located around the package. Also behind the package with Coffe I have a light point. It is set to green and very low power in order to illuminate the contours of the package. By the way, I forgot to show you what material I used for the floor. Everything is simple here. It is gray, but I connected a noise texture to the roughness with these settings, and switched the color ramp to B-spline mode. This is so that there is a smooth transition from black to white. Well, and a constant technique that I use. This is a cube with a very small amount of fog. To be more precise, the principal volume with density set to 0.01. So, now I set the camera settings depth of field to relatively empty, f-stop I set to 2 and focal length I set to 90. And so now we move on to the render settings. Noise threshold I set to 0.03. Render samples I set to 160, later I will raise it up. In light paths I set this settings, but caustics I turned of reflective boxes. Then in performance I set compositor to GPU, it's a new option in Blender 4.2. Then in color management view transform I set to Chronos, it's also new option, it makes colors more contrast. In world settings in settings tab. I set sampling to manual, it makes rendering time much faster. I also want to show you ultra super powerful denoiser that I use. In this case, I turn off ambient occlusion and environment. Since I don't have them, I didn't use them in this case. I'll show you a little closer so that you understand how it's connected. If I tell you in a nutshell, the image is divided into layers during rendering, each of these layers is denoised separately, after which, using a mix color set to multiplay mode and then in add mode, all layers are collected into one image. If you go to the Layers tab, you can see that I have unchecked the box next to Combined and enabled the checkboxes next to Other Paths. And thus the image is parsed into layers. And so after a couple of minutes of waiting until the image is created, I got this image, which I load into Photoshop. Of course, I understand that you can do post-processing of the image in Blender, but I feel more comfortable in Photoshop, maybe even more comfortable. For example, I want to start by creating steam coming from a cup of coffee. I create a new layer, take a soft white brush and draw an approximate shape. Next, I go to Filters, Blur Gallery, Path Blur. Now we set the points according to the shape we have. I set the blur speed to 150% and now we rotate this circle to create a kind of noise. You can also try rearranging the vertices and changing the shape of the smoke or steam. At this stage, we can click OK. Since the general shape suits me, it remains to correct it a little. Now press Ctrl T and make the lower part smaller and place it so that the steam comes out of the cup. We can also change the layer blending mode, in this case screen suits me. And I adjust the opacity. I also add a white mask, that is, it does not hide anything. But I take a soft black brush. And I draw in a circle with black color to dilute the edges of the smoke with transparency. Now I press Ctrl-Alt-Shift-E and create a new layer that combines all the changes. Now I want to create a mystical green glow behind the coffee packaging, but to do this, I need to select the packaging itself on a new layer, and the Object Selection tool will help us with this first. It does most of the work, but I need to correct the selection manually, using the pen tool. I create a contour, set the points in the right places, and when the contour is ready, I click Select, and choose Add to Existing Selection. When the selection is ready, press Ctrl J and create a new layer. Now I select a soft brush. If you hold down Alt and the right mouse button, then by moving the mouse either to the right or to the left, you can edit its size. I simply press Alt and left click to take a color sample with a sidewall that is green. I create a new layer and set it under mine with the coffee packaging. I also create a hue/saturation/brightness adjustment layer for this layer. With its help, I can adjust the brightness and saturation. And now with light brush strokes I create a mystical glow behind the killer coffee packaging. You can also edit the opacity. You can edit the layer blending mode, in this case the linear light suited me. Now I press Ctrl-Alt-Shift-E again, because I need a merged layer. After all, I will now apply the camera raw filter to it. To begin with, I use white balance and set it to auto mode, usually it works fine. But as it turned out, in this case it is necessary to move the white a little closer to blue. Then exposure I set to 0.4. Next is a contrast I set to 7. Light areas to 10. Shadows -30. Whites 5. Blacks -7. Texture I set to 15. Clarity I set to 14. Smoke removal I put 9. Colorfulness 11. Saturation 7. Sharpness control I set to 11, noise reduction to 10. In the Optics tab, distortion I set to -3. and vignette to -30. Well, if you liked this issue, support the world of Blenderizm with likes and a good comment, and don't forget to check the subscription. Thanks, bye.